The sun was a jagged square of bruised purple, sinking behind a horizon of pixelated mountains that shouldn't have existed. Alara wiped a smudge of digital soot from her brow, her breath hitching in the cold, thinning air. Beneath her boots, the floorboards of the Morning Star vibrated with a rhythmic, reassuring thrum-thrum, thrum-thrum. It was the only sound that kept her sane. Beyond the iron-reinforced glass of the locomotive, the world of Minecraft had become a fever dream of mods and nightmares. Alara wasn't just playing a game anymore, she was inhabiting a mechanical heartbeat. When the Endless Rail update had first installed, she thought it was a creative challenge. Now, 300 miles into the Great Blight, she knew it was a trial of endurance. The world outside the tracks was a graveyard of abandoned biomes, choked by a thick, gray fog that hid things much worse than creepers. Fuel at 15%, Alara muttered, checking the brass gauges installed above the furnace. Not enough, never enough. She pulled a lever, and the steam whistle shrieked, a lonely, defiant sound that echoed across the plains. Almost immediately, something shrieked back. It wasn't the moan of a zombie. It was a high-pitched, multi-tonal wail that sounded like tearing metal. A stalker of the fog. A myth whispered about in forum threads, now a terrifying reality lurking just beyond the render distance. Alara didn't look back. She couldn't. She grabbed a stack of charcoal from the storage crate and shoved it into the boiler's maw. The Morning Star was a patchwork of survival, a steam engine, a single flatbed car loaded with crates, and a cramped sleeper cabin. If she wanted to survive the night, she needed more than just movement. She needed a fortress. The first major hurdle was the stopping hunger. In this modded hellscape, the player's hunger bar drained twice as fast, and the scorched earth outside bore no edible fruit. Alara knew she couldn't keep scavenging ruined villages. The monsters there, the man from the fog and the hollowed, were becoming too aggressive. She needed to bring the earth with her. During a tense trek through a ruined forest, while her train coasted at a crawl to save fuel, Alara managed to dig up several blocks of grass and a handful of seeds. Back on the train, she set to work. She expanded the second car, using iron plates and glass panes to create a pressurized greenhouse. She spent hours installing a redstone growth array. It was a complex web of pistons and observers that harvested wheat and carrots automatically, funneling them into a chest near the engine. But a farm needed water. In the vanilla game, an infinite water source was easy, 2 buckets in a hole. Here, the water was heavy, and it evaporated if it wasn't kept in a pressurized tank. Alara looked at the passing landscape. To the west, a biome of jagged ice needles loomed. If I can't find water, I'll take it from the air, she resolved. She spent the next cycle crafting a mechanical condenser. It was a beast of copper and brass, utilizing the Create mod's rotational force. She mounted a massive windmill blade to the roof of the train. As the Morning Star sped forward, the wind spun the blades, powering a set of internal pumps that sucked moisture from the thick, apocalyptic fog and distilled it into pure, drinkable water. She watched the first blue droplets splash into the glass tank. For the first time in weeks, Alara smiled. She wasn't just a passenger anymore. She was an engineer. The peace was short-lived. True night fell, a darkness so profound it seemed to swallow the light of her torches. Alara was in the engine room, tightening a bolt on the drive shaft, when a sudden thud shook the entire train. It wasn't a collision. Something had landed on the roof. Clang, clang, clang. Heavy, metallic footsteps moved toward the front. Alara grabbed her bow, an enchanted hunk of yew reinforced with obsidian. She climbed the internal ladder to the observation hatch and peered out. The creature was a skittering weaver, a mythic entity that looked like a spider crossed with a ribcage. Its legs were made of sharpened bone, and its eyes burned with a cold, blue fire. It peered down at her, its mandibles clicking in anticipation. Alara fired. The arrow bounced off its chitinous shell. Of course, she hissed. Regular weapons won't cut it. The weaver lunged. Alara dropped back into the cabin just as the creature's claws shivered the reinforced glass. She scrambled to the control panel and slammed the emergency vent button. A blast of pressurized steam erupted from the roof vents, scalding the beast. It shrieked and tumbled off the back of the train, vanishing into the dark. But then, she heard the chorus. Dozens of shrieks. Hundreds. The train was moving through a nest zone. She could see them now in the dim red glow of the furnace, swarms of nightgownts and lurkers sprinting alongside the tracks, their pixelated forms blurring with speed. They were faster than the Morning Star's current top speed. I need power, Alara whispered, her heart hammering against her ribs. I need real, unstoppable power. The next few weeks were a blur of frantic labor and narrow escapes. Alara stopped sleeping for more than 4 hours at a time. The train grew longer, a metallic serpent winding through the wasteland. She realized that charcoal and coal were dead ends. They required her to stop and mine, and stopping was becoming a death sentence. She needed a perpetual motion core. She utilized the Ender X mod mechanics. Deep in a ruined laboratory she discovered during a daring raid, she had found a stable singularity. It was a pulsing purple orb that defied gravity. If she could harness its gravitational pull, she could generate infinite rotational energy. She built the Singularity Reactor in the heart of a new, lead-lined car. Huge brass gears, the size of houses, began to spin, driven by the silent, crushing force of the orb. The Morning Star's engine roared to life, no longer wheezing with steam but humming with the vibrations of the void. With infinite energy, her options expanded. Alara replaced the wooden wheels with frictionless alloy rollers. She streamlined the hull with void plating, a material that absorbed light and sound, making the train a ghost on the rails. Then came the weapons. She mounted Tesla coils along the roof, powered by the reactor. Any creature that got within 5 blocks was incinerated by a bolt of blue lightning. To the sides, she installed rotary cannons that fired fire charges at a blinding rate, turning the surrounding landscape into a wall of flame that kept the myths at bay. The Morning Star was gone. In its place was the Juggernaut. Alara sat in the captain's chair, a reclaimed velvet seat from a luxury car she'd found, and looked at her kingdom. The Juggernaut was now 6 cars long. The first car was the engine, vibrating with the purple light of the Singularity. The second was the armory, filled with chests of enchanted gear and the humming turret controls. The third was the biosphere, a lush, subterranean garden where wheat, melons, and even berry bushes grew under artificial sunlight. The fourth was the hydro station, where her condensers provided more water than she could ever drink. The fifth was the workshop, a maze of crafting tables, smithing templates, and auto refineries. The sixth was her home, her bedroom, a small library of recovered books, and a glass-bottomed floor where she could watch the tracks blurring beneath her. She was self-sufficient. She was an island in a sea of monsters. But the game wasn't finished with her. The sky began to turn a sickly, neon green. The rails beneath her started to glow with an ancient, runic light. The UI on her HUD flickered, showing a new boss bar that stretched across the entire screen. The World Eater awakened. From the fog ahead, a shape emerged that defied the logic of the engine. It was a dragon, but one made of corrupted blocks and weeping shadows. Its wings spanned the horizon, and its eyes were the size of suns. This wasn't a standard mob. It was the final myth, the guardian of the end of the line. The dragon roared, a sound that bypassed Alara's headphones and seemed to vibrate in her very bones. The ground shook, and the rails began to twist and buckle. So that's how it is, Alara said, her voice steady. She didn't feel fear. She felt the weight of every upgrade, every bolt she'd tightened, and every seed she'd planted. She stood up and walked to the weapons console. She pulled a hidden lever, and the Juggernaut transformed. Hidden plates shifted, and a massive railgun, literally a gun that fired the rails themselves, extended from the front of the locomotive. My train doesn't just run from you, Alara whispered, her hand hovering over the fire button. It runs through you. She slammed the button. A spear of pure, white energy, fueled by the Singularity and concentrated through the Tesla coils, tore through the air. It hit the World Eater's chest, a collision of logic and chaos that turned the green sky into a blinding white. The train didn't slow down. Alara pushed the throttle to its limit. The Juggernaut screamed as it hit the dragon's physical form, the void plating sparking against the shadow flesh. For a moment, the world was nothing but noise and light. And then, silence. The Juggernaut burst through the other side of the beast. Behind her, the World Eater dissolved into a million experience orbs that rained down like golden snow upon the blackened earth. Alara slumped back into her chair, the adrenaline slowly draining. She looked out the front window. The green fog was gone. The sky was a clear, pale blue, the color of a new day. The tracks continued, stretching out into a pristine, uncorrupted landscape of rolling hills and oak forests. The apocalypse hadn't ended for the world, perhaps. But for Alara, the journey had changed. She looked at her farm, her water tanks, and her humming reactor. She wasn't a survivor anymore. She was the pioneer of a new world, and she had the best seat in the house. The Juggernaut rumbled on, its wheels singing a song of iron and light, leaving the nightmares behind in its wake. Alara picked up a golden apple from a nearby chest, took a satisfying crunch, and watched the sun rise, square, bright, and beautiful.